Let's get to another ranked matchup that we had last night, late night one. Number 24 Utah beating number 17 Cincinnati 45-14, a dominant victory for the Utes. Let's go over the highest graded players, starting off with the Utah Utes. Their highest graded player was edge rusher John Henry Daly, 87.9. Spencer Fano, the tackle, 86. Teo Johnson, the safety, 79.2. Ryan Davis, the wide receiver, 78.2. Jonah Leia, the D tackle, 73.5. And Devin Dampier, 66.3 grade for him in his return. Cincinnati's highest graded players in the loss, safety Xavier Williams, 78.3. Evan Tangisdal, the guard, 77. Cornerback Logan Wilson, 75.8. Wide receiver Cyrus Allen, 72.2. Edge rusher Jalen Hunt, 70.1. And Brendan Sorsby with only a 55.2 grade in the loss for Cincinnati. Dalton, what told the story of this game?
You want to talk about controlling a game? I mean, it started right at the outset. Cincinnati goes 3-and-out on their first drive. Utah takes 7 minutes to score on their first drive. Really started just wearing down this Cincinnati defense from the start. And look, they use a lighter defensive line with a lot of three-man fronts, but Utah and the way they run their offense, Max, 49 of their 87 plays in this game, they ran with a sixth offensive lineman. They run 47% of their plays this season with six offensive linemen on the field. Max, the next closest team is 11%, and that's Miami, Ohio in the MAC. They just get up there, and they're more physical, and they said, you know what? You want to come in here with what you say is a good run defense and you're a run and stop the run team? So be it. I mean, my stat overall is that Utah had the ball for 40 minutes. Yeah. I mean, and that's the idea for them is ball control, run game. Devin Dampier is the complementary piece. Obviously, he's going to make some plays with his legs, too. Wayshawn Parker was outstanding in this game. Burt Ficklin even gets in there in some Wildcat stuff. You get another rushing threat out there on the field for this Utah offense. 53 carries, 267 yards. And the craziest stat for me when I went back and looked at the total, Cincinnati, 30 missed tackles. 30. If you have 18 to 20, you're having a rough game tackling. 30 missed tackles. The second-level defenders had to be great. It's something I talked about, and they've been great all year for Cincinnati. Jake Golday, Antoine Peak, those guys on the second level of Cincinnati's defense. 30 missed tackles for this team. You'll never beat anybody missing 30 tackles. Utah was the physically dominant team in a game that was going to be decided on the ground. They just pretty much massacred the second level of this Cincinnati defense once they got up there.
My stat is Brendan Sorsby had a 41% adjusted completion rate against Utah, which again is your completion rate plus any drops your receivers have. So he was only on target for about 40% of his passes against Utah. Usually you want that like doubled, so like 80% or so. So I said in the preview, Brendan Sorsby has been one of the best quarterbacks in the country this year, but he's really taking advantage of zone coverage. Against man coverage, he's been good, not great. If you remember back in week 1 when they lost to Nebraska, their other loss this season, Nebraska played a lot of man coverage in that game and dared Cincinnati's receivers to get open and beat them, and they couldn't do it. And it's why Brendan Sorsby only averaged, I think, 2.6 yards per pass attempt against Nebraska in week 1. Utah did the same exact thing. Utah runs man coverage at the highest rate in college football. They played a lot of it last night against Cincinnati, and those receivers could not really separate outside of Cyrus Allen, who had a pretty good game. Outside of him, nobody else could get open, and also Brendan Sorsby was not accurate at all against man coverage. Overall, 11 for 33, his lowest passing grade since that Nebraska game. Cincinnati only had a 58.2 receiving grade as a team. Just, again, Utah's secondary was locked down in man coverage, a lot like Nebraska in week 1, and Cincinnati simply just could not get open, and Sorsby could not throw into tight windows against man coverage.
This was always the big question for Cincinnati coming into the year, and look, their record is better than we thought it would be. They've played better overall than we thought they would, but this passing game, especially against teams that run a lot of man coverage and are not afraid of their receivers. Look, Cyrus Allen made 2 big plays, but otherwise this passing game was non-existent. When they have to face teams like this, who run a lot of man coverage and they're not afraid to bump and run, Sorsby doesn't love throwing into tight separation, and these receivers have issues separating one-on-one. They overhauled the receiving core this offseason. They got a whole crew of new guys, Cyrus Allen, Caleb Goody, Jeff Caldwell, all these guys. They got a whole new crew of them. But it feels like it's the same problem. And if they don't turn this around, especially by the time that BYU game comes around in a couple weeks, BYU's a heavy man coverage team themselves with a really good secondary. This could be a problem again. We've seen it twice now with Nebraska and with Utah. Teams that are not afraid of their receivers, they beat Cincinnati. This is what happened the second half of last year. It started, remember, in the Colorado game when they lost that game. Colorado, ton of man coverage, and then everybody else after that followed suit. That's where Cincinnati's losing streak started. So they've got to find ways to either scheme these guys open, or they have to separate better on the outside, or this will happen again against BYU in a couple weeks.
Who do you want to shout out on that Utah defense in this one?
Look, let's look at those 2 outside corners. Even in the slot, look, Smith Snowden, he gave up the 1 big play to Cyrus Allen, but you look at these 2 outside corners, they were just dominant in this game. Blake Cotton and Elijah Davis, 13 combined targets, 5 catches allowed, 48 yards in a game where they were ahead the whole time, so Cincinnati had to throw it. 3 forced incompletions. Cotton had a 73 coverage grade, Davis with a 67. And again, these are not easy assignments when you run the most man coverage in the country like Utah does. You're cover one, you're bump and run, it's physical. You could get beat with 1 false step on any given play, but this Utah secondary, especially these 2 guys, Davis and Cotton on the outside, outstanding in shutting down these Cincinnati receivers.
I got to shout out Spencer Fano, the tackle for Utah. Looked every bit like a top 10 pick in the NFL draft last night. 80.1 PFF grade, 80.5 pass blocking grade, 0 pressures allowed on 35 pass blocking snaps. Last night, he was only beaten once all night, actually, in pass protection. 75.2 run blocking grade. He had 7 positively graded plays in run blocking and 0 negative ones against Cincinnati's really good run defense. He's very much playing this year like a potential top 10 pick and maybe the top tackle in the draft right now, the way he's looking.
Outstanding once again. I mentioned in the preview that the scheme has changed a lot from last year. It's a lot more gap than zone, and he's still excelling. He's just one of the best players in the country. And really, to me, the face of this Utah team with that offensive line, the way that they can physically dominate you any given week.
Definitely.